Hello and welcome to OfficeNewb.com. My name is Kyle Pugh. During this video, I want to introduce you to a pretty common question that I get asked within my Excel VBA courses. How do you pull data from a website? Well, there's actually multiple ways you can do this. Within Excel, you can go to the Data tab, and on the Data tab, you can utilize the Import feature or the Get and Transform feature. But utilizing that feature and then informing Excel that you want to import data from a website, it relies on very specific structure of the data on the website. If you want to get more flexible and more dynamic about where the data is at and how you're pulling the data into your Excel document, then this topic that I'm going to introduce you to here is going to be gold. You're going to save yourself time and become more efficient as you look to extract or scrape data from a web page. This is all going to be done using Excel VBA. All right, let's take a look at what we're going to do here. I've got a website. Let me just open it up here in front of you. There it is. It's a Wikipedia page, and specifically it's the page about list of countries and their populations. If I scroll down just a little bit on this page, you can see that we have a nice little table here. Let me just highlight that table. There we go. And it goes on for quite a while. It's got some headers along the top, rank, country, population, date, and so on. And it's got rows of records that represent each of the countries and their respective information. Now, what I want to be able to do here is utilizing Excel, I want to be able to scrape or extract this data from this website and dump it down into my active worksheet or active workbook. All using Excel VBA. Now, this is just going to be a quick little introduction video. We're not going to get too in depth into it, but I wanted to get some exposure for you and hopefully get you excited about the potential possibilities that you can utilize this within. Okay? So, before we get into the Excel portion of this, it's important that we understand a little bit about the structure of an HTML page. Again, we're not going to go in depth into this, although we could go down several different rabbit holes and end up who knows where. But I just want to introduce you to a quick introduction on how data is presented and organized inside of an HTML document. And I'm going to use the Wikipedia page here in front of you to explain this. Now, ultimately, I want to be able to get this table right there. We were just looking at it. I want to get that and dump it into Excel. Well, in order for me to be able to communicate with the web browser, Internet Explorer, and then communicate with the document or the specific page, and then this table, we need to know how the HTML is written. Well, in order to do this, I'm going to right-click on the page, and I'm going to go into View Source. This opens up the Internet Explorer debugger window, and I'm going to go over to the DOM Explorer or the Document Object Model Explorer. Give that a click. And inside of here, I can see the HTML that really this page is made up from. Now, if I look into there, we have what are called HTML tags. For example, I've got the HTML tag, I've got a head tag, a body tag, some div tags. If I open up one of those divs, we've got an A tag or the anchor tag, an H1 tag for a header, and so on. We got all these tags that inform the browser how it should be displaying and organizing this content. Now, what's important to me is I need to know where this data is at, this table in the background, right, with all of the country and population records. Well, nice thing here, in the DOM Explorer, I'm going to hit this first little button here. This is Select Element, and this is going to allow me to go out. Sometimes it takes a moment to refresh there. Let's make sure that actually, there we go. If I go out and hover over the top of the elements, I can actually kind of dissect this page and drill down into specific elements on this page. So I'm going to click towards the top of the table. This will take me down into roughly that area of the table within the HTML. Now, what's important to us? A couple of things. One, we have a table. That's this table, right? All of those records, countries and population, all of those records. It has an attribute, a class, that defines a little bit more about this table, perhaps its formatting, its structure, and whatnot, but it has a class called WikiTable. Now that's important because in order for us inside our Excel VBA, we need to tell it, oh, go to this page, go to the document, go to the HTML, and look for a table tag that has an attribute or class name where it's equal to wiki table. Now, once it's found that, we then want to get into the TR tags. These are the row tags, the table row tags that comprise this table. The first one there, we have our first row, which is the headers. And then we have underneath that, we have each row or a TR tag for each country. And then within those TR tags, we've got some values that we want to pull out, right? We want the country name, we want the population, we want the date, we want the percentage of world population. I don't care about the sixth column there, the source. I just want the 5 prior columns that those TR tags make up. All right, so really got the HTML document, we got tags within there. In order for us to be able to communicate and pull data from a page, we need to know which tags specifically within that page that we want to pull into our Excel document. All right, so put all that in the back of your head. We're going to come back to it. It's going to become very important here in a moment. So let's put the page away. Let's minimize that. And let's get into Excel. All right, so really simple here. I've just got a brand new Excel document open in front of you. Nothing big. You can do this on your own. Just open up Excel, open up a blank workbook. And then I've got the VBA window, the Visual Basic window open. Alt F11, that's your shortcut key to open that up, but however you do it. And I inserted a new module, just called Module 1, insert module. And now I'm going to create a procedure inside of this module that will help us pull data from that Wikipedia page on the countries and populations. All right, so I'm going to create a procedure here. We'll just call this country pop list. That sounds good. And I'm just going to put a little bit of code in here. This isn't going to be a whole lot of code, but there's some key concepts here that you're going to utilize in any time that you extract data from a web page. Now, before we can actually take full advantage of Excel and VBA and being able to pull data from a website, we need to bring in some additional references that gives us access through VBA to communicate with Internet Explorer and web pages. So in order to do this, in the VBA window, we're going to go to Tools, and we're going to go to References. Inside the References window, you're going to see all sorts of goodies. These are little libraries that contain keywords, objects, and all their properties and methods and so on for various environments. Other applications, internal to Excel, external to Excel, whatever. In this case, we want to be able to activate the Microsoft HTML object library and Microsoft Internet Controls. So you're going to have some other ones already active for you, but make sure that those two right there are additionally activated inside of your environment. Once you get both of those, you can hit OK. And we've now got those references or those libraries loaded into this project, ready for us to take advantage of. All right, so now inside of our procedure, I'm going to create a couple of variables. The first one, ultimately, we want to be able to pull data from a web page. In order for us to pull data from a web page, we need access to a browser to be able to read the contents of that web page. So the first thing I'm going to do here is create a variable called IE_obj or IE object, and it's going to be of type Internet Explorer. And we need to be able to open up Internet Explorer and get access to a page through there. The next thing I'm going to create here, another variable, we'll call it HTML ELE or HTML element, and it's going to be of type HTML element. Now that right there is going to be any of the HTML elements, like their tags, that we want to get access to. Things like the TR tags that contain the data that we want to pull from that table back inside that Wikipedia page. The next thing I'm going to create is one more variable. This is going to come into play later as we get into creating the loop. I'm just going to create a simple I variable. It's going to be an integer, and this is going to iterate for us as we go through each row within the table. All right, that sounds good. And you know what? Right away, I'm going to go ahead and initialize I to 1, and we'll talk some more about that here in just a little bit. But let's put that there. We'll leave it there. We'll come back to it. Now, the next thing I want to do here is I want to get access to Internet Explorer. So the variable called IEOBJ or object, it's going to be an object, meaning it's going to be, in this case, Internet Explorer, an instance of Internet Explorer. So in order for you to be able to work with an object inside of VBA, you've got to set. You got to use the keyword set to initialize the variable. So I'm going to say set IEOBJ equal to a new instance of Internet Explorer. All right. If I were to run this right now, we wouldn't see much. It would create a new instance of it, but it'd be hidden in the background. It'd be running as a process on your computer. We just wouldn't see it. So what I'm going to do next, after I've created that new Internet Explorer instance, I'll now say IEOBJ.visible equals true. I actually want to see it, right? Let's put it on the screen. Let's open up Internet Explorer. So this is really simple so far, not much going on. Of course, there's some potentially some new keywords happening here with the references for Internet Explorer and such. But if you're familiar with VBA, this should look somewhat familiar. If not, right, we've created a couple of variables, and now we're starting to initialize those variables, giving them values, and starting to work with the object, in this case, Internet Explorer. So let's just see what we got so far. I'm going to make sure I clicked into my procedure, and I'm going to hit the Run button. And there we have it. It's now opened up Internet Explorer for us. Ta-da! Couple little lines of code, and we're now able to communicate with an external application outside of Excel. In this case, we're able to work with Internet Explorer. Now, it's an empty page. It's not showing anything. Let's get back to our code. So the next step is I'll take that object that we're now displaying on our screen, and I'm going to use the navigate command and tell it to navigate to a specific page. In this case, let's get my Explorer window here. We are going to navigate to this Wikipedia page. So I just grab the URL, paste that in there. All right, let's just squish this over so you can see more of my screen. All right, so I've got my new instance of Internet Explorer. We're making it visible on the screen, and then I'm going to navigate to that web page, the Wikipedia page, countries and their populations. All right, so if I run this once again, hit the Run button, there it is, Internet Explorer, and it navigated to the web page that I told it to. All right, this is going pretty good, right? Couple little lines of code once again, and we're communicating with Internet Explorer from Excel. All right, so the next step is I now want to start to read content from that page. Now, FYI, and this might be common knowledge, and I'm sure it is, it's something we kind of take for granted. No two web pages are exactly the same, right? Unless you copied and pasted a website, right? But they load differently based on the tags that you use, the amount of tags, the technologies that you use in there, and so on, right? So before we start reading anything, I want to make sure that everything is loaded in the browser. Once I'm sure that everything is there, and specifically the content that I want is there, then we'll start reading it. So I'm going to put a little bit of safeguard in here. I'm going to get access to the application object, meaning Excel, and I'm going to use the wait command. The wait command is just kind of like a pause. Just hold your horses, right? Slow down, wait right here, and then we'll do something. So I'm going to tell it a time to wait. I'm going to say take whatever time it is right now, and we're going to add a time value to it. We're going to add a few seconds to it. So we'll say 0, 0, 0 hours, 0 minutes, and we'll go for 5 seconds. 5 seconds might be overkill, might be a bit much, but I want to make sure that the content that I'm looking for is good and ready. It's loaded, it's in the browser, it is now accessible to me. If you try to access a tag, an HTML element, before it's actually loaded into the browser and visible, then you're going to run into an error. It's going to be like, I can't find what you're looking for. All right. So let's just give it a little bit of time, make sure that everything is loaded. All right. Next thing I want to do is now that I've given it some time and everything's loaded, I can now start to get access to the HTML content. So here's my loop comes into play. Remember, we want to go through all the records of this table and then get the column values from each of those TR tags or the table row tags. So in order to get all the rows there, and I don't know how many rows there are, but we're going to perform a loop. Just repeat the same thing over and over again for each row within the table. I'm going to use a for each loop. So I'm going to say for each HTML ELE, remember that variable that we created earlier, for each HTML element in i.e. OBJ, that's our Internet Explorer that navigated to that page, .document. So now we're not only getting access to Internet Explorer, but to the specific document, the specific page, that Wikipedia page that we're working with. .document. Let's make sure document. We're going to get a specific element from that document. We're going to get elements by a class name. Now you might recall, remember I told you to put this in the back of your head. We want the table. We want to get access to that table we were looking at. So I'm going to get access to an element, an HTML element of that page by its class name. And in this case, we're looking for something called wiki table. Remember that one? We were looking at the HTML. Now there might be multiple elements within that single page that have a class called wiki table. So here, I'm going to access the zero-based array of all of the elements that are called class name, or that have a class name called wiki table, and make sure I get the first one in there, because they are zero-based. Zero would be the first element within the collection of all of those elements with the class name of wiki table. Now the next thing, I don't actually want the table, I want the TRs, right? I want the rows from that table. So now I'm going to say get elements by tag name, and the tag that we want is the TR tag. All right, and then I'll say for next HTML ELE, and it'll move to the next row, and so on and so on. Now, what is it that I want to do here? Well, I want to get into the table. We got that part right. We're getting into the table with the class name of wiki table 1, the first one in there. And then within that table, we're going to look for the TR tags. Now, once we get to the TR tags, I now want to start placing content into the active sheet, meaning whatever sheet I currently have open and active inside my Excel workbook. In this case, it's here in the background. Let's just move that over a little bit. It's called Sheet 1. Right? I think that's the only one that I have in there. Yeah, Sheet 1. All right. End with. All right. Now on the active sheet, I now want to start putting data into the sheet here. So I'm going to say with that active sheet, go to the range. We want to get into the A column first. But which row are we working on? Right? Is it row 1? Is it row 2? Is it row 3? Whatever. Well, we want to start inside of row 1. I don't want to say A1. I don't want to type that literal value A1 in there because our loop is running, right? It's not always going to take place inside of A1. The next time I want to go to A2 and then A3 and then A4 and so on. So this is where our I variable comes into play. Remember this guy? So I'm going to say the first time it runs around, right? We're going to go into A1. And we are going to change the value of that. We're going to make it equal to the HTML ELE dot children. Ooh, here's another concept for us. We'll grab the 0 and we're going to get the text content, or the content of the child of our first TR tag. Now, what is this all about? What is children? Let's copy this one more time. This will help it make a little more sense. This is then going to go to B and whatever I is equal to. This will be the next child, which will be 1. So if I go back to the HTML page for just a moment. So I'm going to get back into the source. Right click, view source. Let's go look at that table again. All right, let's find one of the TR tags. Here we have it. So this would be the second TR tag. This is the Hong Kong, China, 7,448,900. That's that row right there. So underneath the TR tag, we have TD tags. Each of these TD tags would be a child of the TR tag, right? The TR tag is the entire row, right there. But then each of the boxes within that row is a TD tag. It's essentially the cell within that row. So if I get back to my code, all we're saying here is, okay, well, cell or range A, whatever I is equal to, A1, its value is going to be equal to the TR tag, its first child, their zero-based index, and its text content. And then B1, its value will be equal to the next child of that same TR tag. And you might recall that we've got 5 of these things. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. I love copy and paste. Let's just make sure we update, because now I want to go to C, and then D, and then E, and then these will be the next children in line, the next TD tags. All right. What do you think? How's this going? If you got any questions, any thoughts, something's not quite clear, try rewinding the video, take a look at the HTML yourself. Remember, open the page, right-click, view the source, take a look at it. Make sure that that's pretty solid there, at least to a degree, and then the VBA will start to fall into place. Now, one more thing I want to do here within the loop is I need to increase the value of I. Every time it runs, right? First time it'll be row 1, second time row 2, third time row 3, and so on and so on. All right. I'm getting pretty giddy here. This is pretty cool. A little bit of code, and we can now communicate with an outside application, in this case, Internet Explorer, and read content through HTML. All right, let's make sure I can see my window here. I'm going to click into my procedure, and I'm going to go hit the Run button. We'll give it just a moment here. Get back to my HTML or my Excel, and there it all is. Look at that. Let's make these columns a little bit wider. There's China, its population, and so on. India, United States, Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, and so on. There's quite a few rows there. And if I open up the Explorer window here, let's just make sure that stuff is looking good. Let's close the debugger. All right, let's see. Ooh, something's off inside of there. I think the numbers must have just jumped. Look at that. Look at that. I'm looking at China. Okay, there's my first record there. Its population is 1,395,790,000. But it just updated the 18th. I'm looking over here, and I see July 1st. Let's just refresh this page. And there it goes. So I got the window open, and it updated. Right, that's a pretty big jump inside of there. Something was off. Hong Kong went away. It's just China now. So as you run yours, numbers are going to update, right? Depending on when Wikipedia was last updated. So just a little bit of code. And we can now capture, we can scrape the data from an HTML page. Right? I'm going to provide this file, the completed file. You'll find it in this post. You can download it. You can create it yourself. You can take a look and dissect the existing code that I put in there, whatever it is. But get a feel for this, because ultimately this can save you loads of time and becoming more efficient as you work with content inside of a web page. Again, this is Kyle Pugh. Welcome to OfficeNewb.com, and I hope to see you in some of my courses.